Hi everyone, have you all been? Always enjoy looking at you guys chat with each other as you're waiting for me. That's always nice to see every single time. Let's see here. Saeed says, thoughts on Venom 3, guys? I did my trailer reaction to Venom 3. I did it both on my on my Patreon and my YouTube memberships. And look at that, CTG is here. You could tell, and Elite is here as well. You could tell they're both YouTube members because their names are in green and they've got a star right next to them. And the longer they stay members, they'll have the logo will constantly, the badge next to their name will constantly change as the months go by. The longer they are YouTube members. So thanks again, guys, for joining the YouTube memberships. If anyone else wants to join YouTube memberships, remember there's a ton of content coming. I'm just trying to. Let me bring this webcam down because I keep getting out of frame a lot. There you go. So yeah, I'm working on a lot of content for that, and right now I'm prepping. While I'm working on all my other content, I'm also prepping the stuff that I'm gonna have to do for the streams that we do for the membership only streams. I'm prepping those. So yeah. Kit Sketch says, "Hey man, how are you? I'm doing very well. Big Bash, Eric, how was your day? My day was very good. It's a little sort of depressing because tomorrow is my birthday. So it means I'm going to have to try to take some time off. Because I always tell myself, if you have to work on your birthday, that usually means I think I'm kind of being too addicted to my work, and that's not a healthy thing. So you should take some days off. One of those days is your birthday and things. So yeah, I'm basically gonna tomorrow take that day off. Knowing me, I'm most likely going to still do some work because I usually like to get some work done. CTG says tomorrow is his birthday as well. Oh wow, happy early birthday to you as well. Yeah, Jess, it is nighttime here. It's approaching 10 o'clock in 3 minutes. Oh, thank you for all the happy early birthday wishes, guys. I really appreciate it. That's nice. Yeah, but I will be taking some time off, probably watching a movie for my own fun. Oh, thanks, Jake. Thanks, Big Bash, as well. Yeah, it's going to be turning in 30. No, I'm not 30 yet. I'm going to be 29. And then that means I'm 1 year closer to 30. It's just so weird to know that you're past your teen years and now you're almost past your 20 years. It's so freaky. There's always pressure involved as well, so yeah, tomorrow is Captain Eric's birthday. What goes beyond a captain? I feel like once I get older, that's what the level I'll be at, so yeah. Give me a quick second, I just want to quickly check on something here. I'm still here, just you can't see me as I'm doing that. Give me a second. There we go. Elite says, hitting 30 already. Time flies fast. It sure does. Oh, thanks, CTG. CTG says, cheers, Eric, and happy early belated birthday to you. Yeah. By the way, I just thought I'd let you guys know, while we're waiting for more people to come on the stream and everything, I've already let you know that I'm doing more with YouTube memberships. King Eric is a good title, says Spirit Hero. I actually like the sound of that. George Phillips says, hey Eric, nice to see you streaming. I got school tomorrow, so I can't watch the stream, but I just want to say hi. Well, hi. Hopefully you can watch the recording afterwards. Saeed says, we Muslims don't really celebrate birthdays. That's understandable. Although, there are some Muslim people that I used to work with in my previous job, and they talked about their birthdays, and they said they would do it. Celebrating in terms of, like... I remember they said in terms of celebrating, like, make a wish, that kind of thing, they wouldn't do that. But in terms of the festivities, you know, just having a memorable day for their, you know, as they get older. I remember they used to do that, and they said they were fine with that, so that was... Maybe that's what you can do, or at least just have a special day just so you remember your 30th. Because I remember one of my birthdays, I went to go see X-Men First Class. So I always like to do something on my birthday. Last year, I did a birthday live stream with you guys. Jess, I don't know how you can send that poster through that. I just know that... Was it Ian Choi who did it last time? Let me have a look. It was King of the Monsters 2021, who I think was Ian Choi. He came in and he did it that way. He used a Discord app or something, is what he did. So I'd recommend you do that if you want to send it through, but it has to be through Streamlabs. I don't want to set the precedent that people can keep sending me images that I would then put on the stream. That was a one-time thing I did, but if people want to do it through Streamlabs, that's all right, and they can send me a link. But that's about it. Manola says Admiral Eric. Wow, I like the sound of Admiral. And what was another one says the King of the Captain Eric. And Big Bash says Sergeant Eric. Cool. Big Bash says, do you have any Muslim friends? I do. I remember, especially when, don't spend as much time now, because the older you get, you know, you kind of spend more time away. But yeah, I have. And I've used to work with them a lot as well. Jake says, an R-rated Deadpool isn't at risk at this point, though. Who are you talking to? It sounded like you were responding to someone, because I didn't say anything about Deadpool. CTG says, it's going to be my 19th birthday, and that means one more year until I'm 20 years old. Wow, so you were born probably around 2004, 2005, something like that? Sir Eric. Huh, a sir. I never thought of that. Marty says, hey, hi Eric, you received my follow-up email, only I haven't heard from you for a few days, just want to check it came through. Oh yeah, that did come through. Yeah, I did not respond to it because I was very busy. Believe it or not, my Godzilla x Kong vs. Godzilla vs. Kong video is actually coming together a lot faster. I've edited everything. Oh, I got it right then, CTG, 2005. I said 2004 or 2005. But yeah, my Godzilla vs. Kong vs. Godzilla X Kong vs. video is coming across very nicely. I've edited everything. I've edited the story and character segment, the villain segment, the action segment. Now I've just got to do the conclusion segment, which I just finished writing yesterday. I need to do I need to read over it again, and then hopefully record it tomorrow. And then I can start editing that. And I've already done the intro as well, so once I've done that, I can then start putting in the animating the posters. I can then start putting in any other effects I need to put in, and I can also put in all the music in the background and then level that out, and then sort the ending out, and then put it, of course, out there for you patrons and YouTube members who can watch it early, because I've got one of you YouTube members who actually who's got early access to my videos, and I've got quite a few of you on Patreon who also have early access to my Versus videos. So you'll get to see it first, and then it will go up on YouTube sometime after, where everyone else can watch it. But yeah, my thoughts are all in that video. And these are more simple movies, then there's nothing really to really deeply analyze with these. Especially because I've already done a deeper analysis with Godzilla vs. Kong in my last Versus video, when I did Godzilla vs. Kong vs. King Kong vs. Godzilla, the 1960s movie. And I talked about it all there. CTG says, I also would recommend doing Godzilla 1954 versus Godzilla -1. I've actually not seen that original one yet. I still want to. But who knows, maybe when I see it I can then consider it. Jake says, Godzilla x Kong sounds like a ship to me. Lol, it kind of does now that you mention it. I want to ask you guys, by the way, before we get into the stories, there is something I'm also considering doing in terms of content, which is something more topical. So I'm planning on doing something where you'll see me on screen like this. Do you know how you see on YouTube people are talking about the current state of movies and things, and their thoughts? And they're not heavily edited or anything. It's basically the microphone right. They got their microphone right in front of them, almost like a podcaster. You know, the microphone arm coming to their mouth, and they'll talk about what they think of a certain movie topic or subject. I'm thinking about doing something like that, so that way I can get more opinions out to you guys without having to worry about editing a big long video, because that usually can turn me off of talking about a certain topic. So I'm going to consider doing that. But yeah, Marty, who was before known as the Time Shadow, yeah, I will contact you again. I just got busy, so that's why it was hard to, you know, keep up. But I will get in touch with you again. Who's I don't know nothing? I don't know nothing. JWK said, I think you should. And then he retracted that comment, so maybe he thinks I should not. Let's see. Because a lot of people on YouTube do it, and it seems like they're very quick to talk about a topic or a subject. Me, I tend to take longer. Oh, I do nothing. No, I'm just looking at the guy. He's got wearing a mask on his face. Well, kind of in that fashion, but I wouldn't be holding the microphone. The microphone will be in front of me like a microphone arm, almost like how podcasters do. So I'll be doing something like that. Rohan, I put that in my trailer reaction on Patreon and also on YouTube memberships, so I'd recommend you check that out there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to talk about the first story. As always, when I talk about these stories, I won't be able to answer any of your questions. So if you want to have me answer one of your questions straight away, then what you need to do is you'll need to submit a super chat or a Streamlabs chat, and I will answer your question immediately as I'm telling the story. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait until the Q&A later on. But if you want me to answer your questions immediately, you'll have to put in a super chat or a Streamlabs chat, and then I will answer your question. JWK, you worded it fine. That was enough. So remember that if you want to ask me any questions during the streams, in order to answer them, I'm gonna have to ask you to go to Super Chat or Streamlabs chat. Otherwise, I'll answer your questions afterwards, but not whilst I'm doing the stream. Okay then. So with that said, let's move on to the first story. Now, George Lucas. Now, George Lucas has done an interview recently, and I thought I would just get a random image of George Lucas. Then I thought, no, I'll get the actual image of him in the interview that I'm talking about. So that's why you can see the subtitle over there. For some reason, the interview has subtitles, but this is basically the interview that George Lucas was in, and he looks skinnier, funnily enough. Usually, you could always see that on his neck. He would always have that plumpness on his neck, but it's gone in. He looks like he's gone in. Looks like he's lost weight, funnily enough. So yeah, we haven't seen him in a while, and he's doing more interviews lately, and he's being more candid about, Star Wars and how, political it got, and all that kind of stuff. So it's cool to see that. Thunderlord says, I saw your collab with Dead Meat. I didn't do a collab with Dead Meat that I know of. I don't think there's... Yeah, I don't know the collab that you're talking about there, but... Anyway. Yeah, George Lucas, he's basically talking a lot more about a lot of topics, ranging from Disney Star Wars to how political Disney Star Wars got, and how the people at Disney Star Wars were accusing him of not being diverse with his movies and everything. He's talking about a lot of these things lately. I'm sure that he does regret selling Disney to Star Wars. Of course, Jake, I just saw that, glanced at the chat. I saw that. I'm sure he does. But yeah, he talked about that, and one of the things that he talked about was a question that he was asked, which was about Martin Scorsese. The interviewer said, what do you think about Martin Scorsese? Essentially said, what do you think about Martin Scorsese and what he said about, the MCU movies not being cinema? And George said this, which is kind of funny to hear it come from him, because it feels like, almost seems like he's being kind about it, but it feels like he's almost directly addressing Scorsese in a way, which is like, well, yeah, duh. How can you not be thinking the same thing, Scorsese? He said, and I've got it right here, he goes, look, cinema is the art of a moving image. So if the image moves, then it's cinema. I think Marty has kind of changed his mind a little bit. So, yeah, I think that sounds like... It sounds like something that he is like just something like the way he says it in the interview, he says it sounds like something that he's just always thought. He's always thought that cinema is the art of the moving image. And the way he goes that Marty has changed his mind means that Martin Scorsese once thought that, but now doesn't. Which is very bizarre. But yeah, I do agree with that analysis that George Lucas made. I've not said it in those words. That's what George Lucas says. Big Bash, what would he need to get paid for? He sold Lucasfilm for $4 billion. At that point, he's a free man. He called Disney white slavers. You know, they're not going to pay him to say nice things about them. They'll pay him to shut up, I think, or they'll just straight out tell him to shut up. Which is why after that time he called Disney white slavers. We never saw him, say anything like that again in an interview. But now, I think he's feeling more free to where he can talk about it, because there is a shift happening in the industry where they're realizing doing this forced diversity thing is not working for them, versus the movies that do it organically, where it is working for them. So yeah, any movie can be considered cinema. Even if it's not good, you could say it's bad cinema, but it's the word cinema is still in there. So yeah, George Lucas, when he made that statement, and it's a very good interview, there's a lot of other stuff he says. Anytime George Lucas tries to tackle questions about the movie industry and how he essentially makes it out like, I remember one point he says that studio executives are not the brightest people out there. He goes, I'm smarter than them and I'm dumb, so it was funny how he said that. Basically, he goes that the studios have no idea what movies audiences want. Studio executives are not creative people, so they don't know what movies people want. They just see what worked before and says, let's try to do that again. And just look at Disney in that regard, how they keep remaking old Disney classics but in live action. It just goes to show they have no creativity or imagination. They just want to keep re-releasing what worked, and it's not working out for them anymore. So it's like they're scrambling. They don't know what to do. So George Lucas, you could say whatever you want about his prequels, about his, what he does about Star Wars, but ultimately the guy is incredibly smart. And if you look into his history as to why he decided to make, movies on his own, and he was like, I'm leaving this whole Hollywood thing behind. I don't want to work for the Hollywood system who tells you how to make your movies. He left and ended up making Star Wars, which ended up becoming the envy of the industry. Something they could have had if they were nice to him, but ultimately they weren't very nice to him, and he ended up owning it, and they hated that. It was like the one that got away. So when the company and when they owned it later on, Disney, when they owned Lucasfilm, it almost felt like they were trying to get back at him in terms of how badly they treated it. And the person that treated it that badly was Kathleen Kennedy, who was supposed to be George Lucas's and Steven Spielberg's friend. But she's not that anymore. Anyway, so yeah, that's what he said about the industry, and that's what he said about Martin Scorsese. What do you guys think about his comments on Scorsese? And do you guys really think he got paid off by Disney? Because some people said that, and I'm like, he sold his property to Disney for $4 billion. At that point, you don't need to get paid off anymore. Jake says Disney is the EA of movies these days. Yep, I agree. They are. They're not particularly... If anything, they're kind of just getting... Well, I was going to say they're kind of just getting worse, which is like EA, isn't it? Jake says live action Chicken Little. It will happen someday, possibly. Yeah, that wasn't a great movie, I remember at the time. So yeah, anyone else got any more thoughts on this? Spirit Hero says Disney, the horse has been beaten so much that it came back to life to beg you to stop. So yeah, that's basically what George Lucas said about Martin Scorsese. And Martin Scorsese's comments were kind of ridiculous. I mean, they aged better when more Marvel movies came out, like, say, Thor Love and Thunder and The Marvels and She-Hulk and Secret Invasion. So his words aged better then, but ultimately the way he said it, it seemed more like out of bitterness and jealousy than anything else. The fact that other movies were doing better, it's like the fact that Martin Scorsese's movies weren't doing well and other movies were doing better and his were failing, it kind of made him just say something which felt like it was comments that came from a bitter old man, is what it felt like. The grouchy old man type, it felt like that. Hi, Arathorn. No, we're just talking about George Lucas and what he said, how he responded to Martin Scorsese. I can't remember Spirit Hero when Martin Scorsese said that, but it was about, was it 2-3 years ago? It was when he was promoting, I think it was The Irishman. Yeah, Zayden, don't worry, you just missed the first story, which we talked about. So if you want, you can catch that later on. But yeah, ultimately, we were just talking about what George Lucas said about Scorsese's comments that superhero movies or Marvel movies are not cinema. When they clearly are. Even if they're bad cinema, they still are. Although you could make the arguments for other stuff like She-Hulk and Secret Invasion, which just got so bad, where they spent $200 million essentially, especially in Secret Invasion's case, on a show that looked so cheap. So yeah. Alright, moving on to the next story. Now it's time to talk about The Hunger Games. Now, The Hunger Games was a movie franchise that had a good run back with the original movies based on the novels that came out by Suzanne Collins. But then we got the other movie, the Hunger Games prequel film, which was the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I still haven't seen that. I want to see it. Who knows, maybe on my birthday tomorrow, maybe I'll see it then. But yeah, apparently Suzanne Collins has come around and she's going to write another novel. And the novel that she's going to write is going to be a prequel. And the prequel is going to be based around Haymitch here, who is, as you can see here, is talking to Katniss here, Jennifer Lawrence's character. Now, Haymitch is a character who went through the Hunger Games when he was younger, and that's why Katniss went to him. She wanted advice from him. And you could tell in those movies, especially in that first one, that he was a drunk, he was a complete wreck, because of what the Hunger Games did to him. So it's cool, essentially, now to see that we're finally going to see what that story of his was. Now, technically, you don't need to know what the story was, but nowadays Hollywood is really trying to just get as many sequels and spin-offs and movies they can, so that's why we're gonna find out. But this is one of those prequels where I wouldn't mind actually seeing it to find out what happened. At the same time, though, if it's not going to be played by a young Woody Harrelson, I kind of don't care, because I thought Woody Harrelson really made this character his own. So, it is a shame that we're going to have to get another young character playing, one of these characters that we know and love. And that means we're also going to have a new president. What was the evil old man's name? His name was in my head and I just lost it. President Snow. We're gonna get another younger actor playing President Snow. So yeah. And yeah, that's basically funny that we've had 3 actors now play the same character. And I also heard that the same director is going to come back. His name was Francis Lawrence, if I remember correctly. So yeah, basically she's writing a new novel, which will come out next year. And the reason she's writing that new novel is because the year after that, Hollywood are going to adapt it and make a movie out of it. So they've already agreed to make a movie based on a novel that is not released yet. That's kind of what happened with that recent movie with Henry Cavill. The terrible movie that came out with Henry Cavill recently, Argyle. That's what happened with that. That was essentially based off of a script that was kind of in the blacklist, kind of like scripts that were just like ignored. They took that, they thought, well, this will be popular in the future. Hollywood just assumed it was going to be popular in the future. And they made the movie on it, and the movie did poorly and was also a really terrible story as well. So, I don't know. I feel like this is a book that I would have liked to have seen been released for a bit, and then if it was a good book, then they adapt it. But the fact that it's a book that they've not even read yet, it's very easy money for Suzanne Collins, I gotta say. So, she is a good writer. So, who knows? Let's wait and see. Maybe it will be good, but, yeah, I'm kind of surprised they want to make another Hunger Games movie, considering that the Songbird of Ballad and Snakes apparently didn't do so well. And I heard mixed reviews for the film as well. Now, in March 18, 2025, the book is supposed to come out. And in Thanksgiving of 2026 is when the movie is supposed to come out. So, essentially, a year, almost just under 2 years after the book comes out is when we're going to get the movie, essentially. So, yeah. It'll be a long time away. I probably would read the book as well, to be honest with you. I remember I wasn't a fan of the first Hunger Games. My sister really loved it, but I wasn't really a fan. But then the second Hunger Games came out, and I heard a lot of the people that were not fans of that first movie really enjoyed the second film, because it felt almost like it was a remake of the first movie. So, people went to go watch the movie, I went to go see the movie, and it ended up being, I was shocked at how much I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it so much, in fact, that I went as soon as I came out of the theater, I went to go purchase the book, and then I read it when I got home. That was really, really a cool feeling, that was. And it was like reading the very next sequel after I had just seen the movie in theaters, and that was cool. It took me a long time to read the book, because I think about halfway through I was like, alright, it feels a bit slow right now, so eventually I got to it and I finished it. But yeah, I enjoy the third book, but I did think it wasn't necessary to make it into 2 parts, which I think was just a bad idea. But it wasn't done as bad as it could have been in terms of them splitting it. But it was not a good idea for them to split it. It is quite hypocritical of Hollywood to keep making movies off of the Hunger Games, though, because they clearly don't believe in it. Because the author, Suzanne Collins, essentially said that she based the story on this around, I think it was the Iraq War, which she disagreed with. And when you look back at the Iraq War now, it makes sense. A lot of people at the time were very emotional, so they were like, yeah, go to war, go to war. But when you look back in hindsight, and people look at it, they're like, yeah, that wasn't a good choice. So people that now were against the Iraq War, at the time they looked like crap. Now, people are like, yeah, maybe they had a point, but it's like, but it's too late now, because you wanted to go for it at the time, and the damage is already done. But yeah, Suzanne Collins, she was against it. So that's why she tried to put it in the book, in terms of the oppressive, sort of like, how many pages was that book? I don't know. But essentially, with the dictatorship that was going on, and how the people at the bottom were being discriminated against and ruled over, Suzanne Collins wrote that in her book. But when you look at, the history of who Hollywood has been supporting, which has always been the oppressor, and then when the rebels come around, they always like try to frame them as the problem. It's like, that's what the villains do in these movies. Do you remember the whole Mockingjay resistance, and how they were trying to like call them like these names? I remember there was even a scene in was it the Hunger Games 2 or was it 3, where they say that the lady says to Snow, President Snow, we'll call them radicals, and he goes, no, and then she says, we'll call them this, and then he goes, huh, like that. It was like a media frenzy, which is basically what happened at the time in the Iraq War and everything. So it's even happening now in terms of people that support Palestine. So it's interesting that Hollywood are for the villains, essentially, in real life, but then in the movies they'll say the villains are wrong and the rebellion and the good guys are right. It just shows a double standard, and it shows how hypocritical they are, but they think, yeah, we're going to profit from this, so let's do it. It just goes to show how messed up in the head they are. So, yeah, you can't help but watch stories like this now and just think, yeah, but Hollywood, you silence anyone that supports, the innocent people, like the innocent people of Panem, was it? You have to forgive me, I haven't seen Hunger Games in a long time. But the civilians there, it's like, those are the people that in real life people are supporting technically, which is what was the Hunger Games showed, which was the innocent civilians that were being discriminated against and being killed on sight. That's who so clearly the movie makes a distinction saying those innocent civilians are the good guys, the oppressors, the one that kill them, are the bad guys. Those are the villains, and these are the good guys. But in real life, it's the complete opposite. It's like, don't they see the hypocrisy in that? Well, maybe they do and they just don't care. So yeah, that's just something that I noticed. So them making another Hunger Games movie and trying to say, here are the bad guys, the oppressors, and the civilians here, these are the good guys. It's just so tone deaf, I feel, for them to be, Hollywood to be making movies on this, and then for them to be supporting the oppressors in real life, and silencing anyone who tries to support the civilians. It just continues to show the hypocrisy of modern Hollywood. But Hollywood has always been, showing a lot of hypocrisy. Caesar, Jess. I would pick Caesar. Jake says, to be fair, the writing in those movies wasn't great, so yeah, it couldn't be her best works. Well, I thought the writing was actually pretty good in the second book. Third one, I thought had problems with the writing, but the second one, I thought she was really on point. CTG says, if only Marvel and DC Studios watched Godzilla -1, they would be shaking and thinking this is what people are watching, and it's actually a good movie, unlike our recent movies. Yeah, but I think they're just too dumb to see it that way. Trico, you thought Godzilla -1 sucked. That's a hot take. But I'm no stranger to hot takes myself. Saeed says, there's people that says both sides, but they would fully be on the hero side of thing when it comes to fiction. Yeah, exactly. Star Wars, whose side are they on? The Rebellion. Hunger Games, whose side are they on? The Mockingjay, you know, that whole thing. What was that? Divergent. They pick the Rebellion there as well, but in real life they believe all the propaganda that is put out against the Rebellion. So yeah, it's just nonsense. Yeah, Big Bash, Godzilla -1 is now on Netflix. I was surprised when my brother told me it was on Netflix. And it's all, because I was like, that's quick. And it's also in English dub, which I checked out a bit, and I was like, yeah, the English dub, English dubs have come a long way now, but you always get those really bad English dubs, like the ones that were done like that sound like they were done in the 90s. And that's what this one sounds like. It sounds like one of those bad old English dubs, not the good kind. No, I've not watched X-Men 97 a teen, but I will consider it on my show on YouTube memberships. But first I'm thinking of watching Loki on YouTube memberships with all of you guys, and then I'll hopefully move on to X-Men, but we'll see what happens. JWK says, I'm gonna head out, Eric. See you next stream. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Thanks for joining. The Logman says, like you said, with the old King Kong versus Godzilla. What did I say about it? Jake, I've not even seen Wolf of Wall Street, and it is because I've heard that it's just a bunch of drinking, drugs, and sex. And for me, I'm like, I don't like that in movies. I'm sure there might be an underlining theme in there when you get past it, but it's not worth watching 3 hours of that kind of stuff just to get there. Oh, right, like I said, with the old King Kong versus Godzilla. Yeah, but that wasn't dubbed. That was more like the English subtitles, which I thought were, just off. I don't think that one did have an English dub, if I remember correctly, but then again, I can't remember properly, so who knows. Triss says, hey, Eric, I have to do something. See you next stream. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Take care. I can't wait for you to catch up on 97. You would love it. Well, that's going to be... X-Men 97, if I do it, will be on a YouTube memberships thing. And I'll watch it live, and you guys can watch each episode live with me and see my reaction as I do it. And then I'll review each episode individually, and then I'll review the final show. The G-Gamer says, Hunger Games 1 or Maze Runner 1? I'd say Maze Runner 1. I liked that first Maze Runner. The ending was a bit weird, I remember, but I liked the but I liked the rest of the Maze Runner concept. Yes, I have just seen Sausage Party. Wasn't a fan. Alright then. Time to move... Well, before we move on to the next story, does anyone else have anything to say about this? Do you think this is a good idea? Or are you looking forward to seeing Haymitch's story? To see what his Hunger Games were like? Elite says, I wanted you to see Loki because I wanted your opinion on the show. Yeah, I don't know what my opinion is on the show because I've not seen it. So I will watch it one episode at a time with you guys on YouTube memberships. So that's something to look forward to. Yes, Cosmic Studios, watch The Boys. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, just watch the whole first season. It's a very good show. It's a great binge as well. It really is nicer if you can binge it. The Nine does says, hell nah, it's gonna suck. Trico says, kinda. Jess says, no, let it be cancelled. The G-Gamer says, one thing I appreciate in the prequel is that they bring back the Hunger Games from the previous movies in an earlier state, so I'm curious what Haymitch's Hunger Games were like. I would have thought Haymitch's Hunger Games were more like the one that Katniss went through. I'm sure Katniss had some more conveniences. They added extra elements to the games to make it more interesting. But Haymitch's was probably more like they had less power-ups and less supplies they could give. I always prefer binge watch, Aurangzeb. Always prefer binge watch. The Ninder, I'd pick The Boys over Invincible. I still have to see the second half of Season 2, though, which I will be watching on Patreon as part of my Let's Watch there. It sure has aged well, Big Bash. Alright, time to move on to the next story. CTG, I did not know Apple were having that tomorrow, but lately I've become less interested over the last few years, so I'll let them announce it, and then I'll watch the highlights once their event is complete on YouTube. Or I'll just watch my favourite YouTubers who talk about it, just bring up the highlights themselves. Because Apple are so pompous on stage, they really are. It's so obnoxious watching them. Alright, so, next up is a very interesting story. Apparently, Jordon Peele met with Marvel for an undisclosed Marvel movie at first, but then we recently found out that movie that he talked to them about was actually X-Men. And it turns out he walked away, so he disagreed with it. Now, I'm going to talk about what I think of Jordon Peele as a director for X-Men. Now, this is not going to be Hugh Jackman or any of them. This is apparently going to be the MCU when they do their own X-Men. That's what this is going to be. Spirit Hero, I've not seen Severance. So, Jordon Peele, like I said, was offered to direct the MCU's X-Men with the MCU's own original cast. And it looks like he isn't going to be the director because talks between him and Marvel didn't go as well as they had hoped, and he had declined. And according to the sources who gave us this information said, Peele met with Marvel Studios to discuss their X-Men film. It should be noted that the actual meeting took place a long time ago and simply didn't work out. It's indicated that Peele and Marvel walked away on good terms and could work together on something else. Now, this is the thing where I think it's kind of interesting. Now, I'm going to talk about what I think of Jordon Peele. I'm going to tell you what I think about Jordon Peele as a director in a bit. But here's the thing. He is more of a political director. He likes to talk more about, you know, white people and black people and that kind of stuff. But he's also got good concepts in there. Even though they could just be... sometimes they're just completely unclear. You don't know what he's talking about. Like when I don't know what he was trying to say with Us. Us was just freaking weird. It started out really cool, the first half, then the second half got really weird. Now, he's a good director, but I don't see him as a big blockbuster director, because all his movies are just very the lower budget type of movies. They're not like these big budget stuff. They've not got big action sequences or anything. It's just very it's on a very low level of directing compared to like the big blockbusters where you need like big directors. And it genuinely feels like to me that Marvel are looking at him and thinking, huh, he seems to be the perfect director for us because he doesn't know how to direct action. He's someone who looks like he makes these type of movies that have politics in it, so he can give some political commentary in there. And the action, yeah, if he doesn't know how to direct action and he's never directed big blockbuster action, that's okay. We can shoot the action ourselves. Because for those of you that don't remember, one of the Black Widow directors who left Black Widow and declined to direct it, she said that because Marvel said to her, you don't have to worry about the action sequences, we'll direct those, you can do everything else. Which is like, what else is there? Just the talking scenes. So, Marvel have got a reputation ever since then of going to many new talent directors and saying to them, it's okay, you don't have to direct the action, we'll direct the action for you. And when you do that, it means that the whole purpose of hiring a director who's got their own voice and their own creative vision, you've gotten rid of that for someone else who can just do an adequate job or a passable job. And that's why a lot of the action scenes in these Marvel movies, like the Marvels and so on and so forth, just don't look good. Even in Black Widow, it's like they were very, like, you went from doing like practical car explosions to Marvel all of a sudden doing like CGI car explosions. I've mentioned that in my videos before. So them hiring him, I would say was not a good idea, because I don't think he can do big budget blockbuster kind of directings, and he can't direct action sequences, I don't think. So it feels like Marvel got him just so they could say, yeah, you can direct all the other scenes and we'll direct the action scenes for you. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the reason why he said no. Also, Marvel are going to be breathing down his neck. They're going to probably ask him, oh, you're also a comedic director because, you guys, remember him and Key and Peele, they both did a lot of their comedy skits. Most likely Marvel thought, so that means you can do a bunch of comedy for us. So I'm sure they wanted to go for that goofy comedy as well, knowing them. I can't say for certain, but I think that's what they would have done. And honestly, I'm afraid of what Marvel are going to do in terms of the politics of the X-Men movies, because it's like X-Men was, I think the Fox movies, back when they were doing, the Fox movies, they knew how to do politics, like discuss politics and everything in those films. But that's because they came from a time where people used to know how to do it. But nowadays, I feel like studios don't know how to talk about politics in movies as much. And Disney are the worst offenders. They really can't do it, because every time they try to do it, everyone sees it as them just looking to get a quick pat on the back. So, yeah, Marvel really have just lost it. They don't know how to do this kind of stuff when it comes to, smart storytelling, and especially in terms of politics. So I'm very... I don't trust them, basically, with this decision. I don't trust them. Oh, look at that. Adam Grunther has entered the stream, and he's given a $5 super chat. Thank you very much for the super chat, Adam. I really appreciate it. I always say these super chats really do help. Adam says, what are your thoughts on the new casting for the other Daily Planet members for James Gunn's Superman? Well, I didn't look into them deeply, but I did look at their faces, and I found out they're supposed to be the rest of the Daily Planet staff. And I was like, you know what? They look good. Like, they just look like... They don't look like CW Daily Planet staff, if you know what I mean. They do look like they fit, the other roster of actors that James Gunn has hired. So I think it was I think they're very good choices. They're very good choices. I'll give them a thumbs up on that. So, Adam Grunther, to answer your question, I really liked it, what I saw of them. That being said, I can't remember what other stuff they're in at face value. I didn't really look into their names. But at face value, when I looked at them, I was like, yeah, they look like they fit. Jacinda says, so essentially, Jordon Peele was most likely asked to come to put his name on the movie. Yeah, that's what they always try to do, Marvel. They like to get the name director, but they don't like to give them creative control. They ultimately like to be the ones to pull the strings. What is going on here? I don't know why Siri keeps coming up. There you go, it's gone. Now it's back again. What is happening? Is a button being pressed or something? Okay, it's gone. That was so weird. So something was weird was going off on my computer, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, this is weird. Some weird stuff is just happening to my computer, guys. I don't know what to say. Buttons are going off and things are happening. Alright, let's see. Hopefully nothing else happens. Okay, the actress cast as Cat Grant in Superman was also Floor the Rabbit in Guardians 3. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see. Beck Burnett's character is Steve Lombard, who's basically Eddie Brock minus the murderous tendencies. Beck Bennett plays the douchey character very well. Honestly, it's perfect casting. Well, that's good. I'm really glad that James Gunn, I keep saying this, he's doing a very good job with the casting. Even the race change, which you guys know I don't like poor race changes. He even did that very well with Perry White. So yeah, I do like the casting. Just a shame for that Superman image, but ultimately everything else, I do like the idea behind it. I think I know why stuff was going on. I think my book was hitting the space bar or something. Let's see. No, I don't know. That was weird why my computer was just going off there. Fireboy says, thoughts on Venom 3 trailer? You gotta go on my Patreon, buddy. Patreon or YouTube memberships and you'll see my trailer reaction. Robin, I've not seen my adventure with Superman. Inside Out 2. I'm considering doing a versus video with that. Let me do a poll with you. Actually, I'll do a poll with you guys later. Let's finish talking about this first. Jess says, why can't Jordon Peele do an action movie? I'm not saying he can't do one. I'm just saying that this is what Hollywood does. They really need to just let their directors work their way up in terms of the scale of movies they make, and then give them a big blockbuster. But Marvel don't seem to be doing that. They just seem to say, oh, you're a brand new director that's only directed just a couple of movies, very low budget ones. Here, let's give you a $250 million big budget blockbuster. Even though you've only worked with $5 million or $7 million budgets before, or even lower than those. You're not going to get someone who knows how to use the tools as a filmmaker. They're not going to be able to do a great job with the action scenes or even the special effects, because they're new. And then what's going to happen? Marvel will say, don't worry, we'll direct the action sequences for you. And that is what I do not agree with. And that's what I mean by Jordon Peele. He's too new to direct a big budget blockbuster with all these superpowers and all these action sequences. He's way too new for that. So I don't think he's the good choice, purely because of that reason. Let's see. Where is that comment gone? Theron says, Peele writing it could have been good, but not sure about directing. Even him writing it could be interesting, but I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like when Marvel hire people like Jordon Peele, it's because they don't want to see their vision. It's more like they have an idea of what this person, how they could advertise this person in the press junkets and the interviews and the marketing. It feels more like they think about it from that perspective rather than what can this director bring to this project. Because it's clear they don't want directors to bring something to the project because they want to be able to control them. So that's why, unlike DC, Marvel do not hire big directors, because they want to be able to control them. They don't want the directors to have a proper voice and a commanding voice. So who knows, maybe Jordon Peele, maybe he did have more of a clear vision of what he thought the X-Men should be, and Marvel were like, nah, that's not what we want it to be, so yeah, we'll, and then Jordon Peele was like, alright then, that's fine, but this is not a project for me. You know, maybe that's why it happened. But yeah, they really need to do better. I'm not really a fan of what Marvel are doing. This is a flaw that I've always had with them, and a lot of people have this flaw with them too. And oh wow, look at that! Jake is back at it at his old donations. He's given a $70 donation. Thank you so much, Jake. I really do appreciate that. Really, thank you very, very much. Jake says, yeah, I agree. The X-Men films, some of them, were better than Curitan of MCU films. They felt somewhat more maturely written. Mature is the word, Jake. They felt very mature, as opposed to the new movies that feel like they're just... It's like the activist who spends all their time on social media wrote the politics for the movies. That's what the kind of people they go for nowadays, unfortunately. They felt somewhat more maturely written. Anyways, off topic, but you know what I learned this year? People really should give new things a try. New IPs often flop. Yeah, they should give new things a try. In fact, George Lucas talked about that. He goes that, in that George Lucas story we're talking about, in that same interview, he said that movie studios are not creative people. They just look at what worked before and they want to try to recreate that or repackage that. It's why we keep seeing all these live-action Disney remakes, for example, or just remakes in general. They don't, like, look what Sony did with the female Ghostbusters. They literally just took a handful of comedians and just put them in the Ghostbusters costumes and said, there you go, worked last time, it should work this time, right? They're not smart people. George Lucas even said that movie studios are not the most sophisticated of people. So he's... that's what I like about George Lucas, is how frank and candid he is about this. Because he doesn't have to fear Hollywood. He can just say whatever he wants. And he's very candid about them and what they're like. And yeah, when you see stuff like this, they're afraid of new IP because they don't know if it's going to do well. But it's like... A lot of these movies you didn't know were going to do well at the time, but they were new IPs. The Lion King wasn't always iconic. It had to be created at a point, and it was a risk. It was something brand new. The same with all the other movies that Disney make. There are all of these these movies that are now classics, but they started out as a new IP. And look at where we are now. But nowadays, they're not willing to experiment on new IP. If anything, the places that are willing to experiment on new IP the most is Netflix and indie studios. They are the ones doing a lot more experimenting, and I'd say horror franchises as well are the only ones where Hollywood is willing to experiment because they're so cheap. And if the horror franchise does well, like the Conjuring franchise or Saw did, the Saw franchise, or Insidious, or the Quiet Place movies, it's like these things all started out as new IP and they were willing to experiment on it because they were cheaper. There wasn't much of a big financial risk. But nowadays, if they want big blockbusters to be successes, there has to be more of a financial risk. It's easier with some characters like Batman and things, but if you look at what Marvel are doing now, it's not working out well for them because they're not treating them with respect. They're just looking at it and saying, yeah, let's just make something quick out of this big IP. So even when they have IP, they're not treating it with the proper care and respect that it needs and deserves. So yeah, it's just Hollywood being Hollywood, ultimately. What George Lucas says about Hollywood not being the smartest or most sophisticated of people, these are the results of it. And the movie industry is in big trouble now as a result, even the box office, all because of them. So yeah, a great question, Jake. Very great question. And thank you very much for the $70 donation. I really appreciate it. I always keep saying these donations really do help. And who knows, because it is my birthday tomorrow, maybe I'll use some of that donation. I'll get myself some food or something. So thank you again, Jake. I really appreciate that donation. I really, really do appreciate it. And thanks to Adam Grunther for his donation earlier as well. I like how I keep looking at the comments. I just scrolled down, just had a quick look at the comments. Big Bash is like, Jake did it again. Fireboy is like, Jake again. Khan says, Jake, the man himself. Zayden is like, common from Jake. Yeah, Jake is always very kind. The G-Gamer says, happy early birthday, Eric. Oh, thank you very much. By the way, I'm also getting a new phone coming in soon. And when I do, I'm thinking of using that as a new camcorder to record my game show. because I got a couple of devices that I want to cover on my game show. I've got, like I said, this new Anbernic Game Boy Advance SP, which they made, which is a really great device. It's meant to be... It meant to look like a Game Boy Advance when really it's not, but it can play Game Boy Advance games. So yeah, I'm going to be covering this on my game show, and I'm also... It's called Anbernic, Big Bash. And also what I'm going to do is cover my Nintendo DS, because that was my first ever console, my DS Lite. So I'm going to be doing videos on that, and you'll be getting a lot of my gaming history. You're going to learn a lot about Captain Eric's gaming history on this live stream, on the game show. Zaiden's giving me happy early birthday. Thank you very much. Said says happy early birthday. Thank you as well. Noah, I guess, yeah, well, I guess we could go to the Q&A now. Unless any of you guys have... Thank you, Zilla, for the happy birthday wishes. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about with regards to Jordon Peele and him being offered the directing gig of X-Men for the MCU? Jacinda says, my eyes are on the Penguin and Joker 2 for now. Yep, me too. I've even said this before. I said, even though I'm looking forward to Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm looking more forward to Joker 2. Elite says, Captain Eric lore. Yep, you'll be learning a lot of Captain Eric lore, because you guys probably might not know this. Some of you will, but a lot of you might not. I didn't start out being a movie reviewer. In fact, when I was very young, I wanted to make a gaming channel, and I made a lot of videos on the Nintendo DS. So if you go right the way back to my early videos, they were DS videos. So I can talk more about what was going on in those times and things if you want on the game show videos. Big Bash says, how do you feel about getting $74.98 in the stream, Eric? You mean from Big Bash? It feels really good. Here's the thing, though, that those are... no, you mean from Jake, getting that donation from Jake. It feels really good. It's always very generous. Canadian dollars, though, when converted to pounds, it does go down a bit. But like I said, those are always appreciated. Manola says, I saw some of your earlier videos. Yep, there were some DS videos for sure back then, and I didn't know how to really film them, so I was very young at the time, like 11 or something. Jess says, Eric, will you do a quick movie review on Madam Web, just like what you did with Morbius? I don't know. I feel like when I did see Madam Web, the time had kind of come and gone, so we'll see. CTG says, Marvel should hire Takashi Yamazaki, the director of Godzilla -1, to one of their movies, and Marvel would most likely get a massive surprise. Yeah, but they're not going to let him. Also, I don't think he really knows how to direct. He can't really speak English. I don't think he can say a few words. But also, I think he said he was a big fan of Star Wars, and he always wanted to, make a Star Wars movie. And Dave Filoni is a big fan of Godzilla. So Dave Filoni invited him to Lucasfilm, and they screened his movie to a bunch of the people that worked at Lucasfilm. And most likely, I think the Star Wars, Lucasfilm, Dave Filoni and such, I think they're going to try to come in and give him a Star Wars gig. So I think that's what's going to happen, not at Marvel. And I'm glad he's not going to be at Marvel. Jake says, I saw that review of the TMNT Manhattan game you did. Yeah, that was when I was trying to do 3-minute reviews at the time. That was fun, but I cancelled that show because it wasn't getting the viewership I needed. And yeah, well, all that happened and eventually led to me doing Versus videos, which is where I found the majority of you guys, so it all worked out in the end. But don't worry, I'll be able to cover some more gaming things on my game show on Patreon and YouTube memberships. So if you want to watch my trailer reactions or request videos, like all this stuff, basically it'll be coming to YouTube memberships. And you can already do YouTube memberships right now if you wanted to as well. And you can get trailer reactions, like my Venom 3 trailer reaction. You can get early Versus videos, access to early Versus videos, which you will get when I do my Godzilla vs. Kong vs. Godzilla X Kong video, which should be out in the next few days. You'll get early access on Patreon or YouTube memberships if you select the perk. And yeah, there's a lot of perks coming. And I've also, like I said, got a game show where I'll be talking about more video games, because a lot of you do like to ask me about questions about video games, and you get to really engage with that video game side of me on the game show. Manola says, I saw your Mirror's Edge Catalyst video before. It was pretty funny. Yeah, I remember I tried to inject more comedy into those. Big Bash says, Eric, after finals, I have to get a minor surgery for the joint of my toe. Ooh. I wish you the best, buddy, and I wish you a fast and speedy recovery. Let me know how it goes when it happens. Saeed says, I've watched Madam Web and couldn't go past halfway. It was so boring and bad. The script indeed felt like it's AI, and somehow the villain's voice is AI as well. Yeah, me and my brother were doing nothing but laugh throughout the whole thing. We were. And yes, it is the Q&A now, because it seems like no one's asking any more questions about X-Men. Zilla says, I'm inspired by you, Eric. I would like to thank you. Oh, thanks very much, buddy. That really means a lot. Fireboy says, I'm going to go, Eric. Yeah, no problem, buddy. Thank you for joining the stream. Midnight Dubstep says, I stumbled on your old videos, DS videos, when I was like 9 or 10, and I'm 22 now. Oh, wow, so you've been with me for a very long time then. Thank you for sticking with me for all this time. Zelda fan says, have you played a Persona game? They are amazing RPGs. I'm not a fan of RPGs because I don't like games that go on for tens of hours and just over and over, and some games go on for over 100 hours. That's not me. I like my single player game. So if there's an RPG, like action RPGs, I like those better. But the typical RPGs that there's a lot of small missions you got to do to keep building up your XP, and then leveling up takes a long time. I don't like that. That's one of the things I do not like about Hogwarts Legacy. I still haven't beaten that game, and about 75% of players did not beat that game. Only 25% of players completed it, based on a poll that was around before. Jess says, Eric, we were all disappointed at you for putting TMNT Mutant Mayhem on the worst list, but I do respect your opinion on it, so I'm not mad at you. Well, that's what I said this channel is all about, respecting opinions. I gave my reasons as to why I was not a fan, and I think I worded them very well, because that's what really is important, is so long as you word your criticisms well, that's what matters, and I always try to voice my criticisms as well as I can. And the stuff I praise as well. Spirit Hero says, little heads up, I'll be absent for the next few live streams as I'm going to Japan to visit family, and I'm not too sure about the time zones. Don't worry, as soon as I announce a live stream, if you see it on your subscriptions, it should tell you what time the stream will be on for you. So, I watch live streams on certain people who are in America, which is a completely different time zone, but it tells me what time it will be available for me. So the same thing will happen for you. So you still could very much join the stream, so don't worry about that. Manola says, Eric, have you seen Wish by Disney yet? If not, will you watch it? I've not seen it yet. Will I watch it? I am not entirely sure. Probably not. I'm not going to do a video on it. If only if I was going to do a video on it, only then I would. But I'm not going to. The Master of Gaming has done a $2 super chat. Thank you very much, buddy. Please review Max Steel 2016 and three-way Venom versus. I just thought of a three-way Venom versus video. The idea of that is not fun. Also, the same month Venom comes out, isn't Joker 2 coming out? So I gotta do a Joker 1 versus Joker 2. We'll see what happens closer to the time, buddy. But that's still a bit further away. Tharon says, what is the best comic book casting of all time in your opinion? Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I'll consider doing a three-way versus video of Master of Gaming. I do like the idea. As torturous as it would be, I do like the idea. Jess says, Venom 3 or Joker 2? Joker 2, of course. Is that even a question? Spirit Hero says, a three-way Venom versus video will make Eric's head explode. Lol. Yeah, probably. Elite says, did you like anything about TMNT Mutant Mayhem aside of the criticism? I thought I gave the stuff I liked in the movie. I remember there was parts of the climax I liked. In my video, I said the stuff I liked. There was part of the climax I liked. There was also the animation that I liked. I thought it got a bit too wiggly with the pencil lines they tried to do, but I thought that the animation looked cool. There was a couple cool bits, a couple good action bits, but ultimately, no, I didn't really like a lot of the stuff. I just wanted to get out of the movie's atmosphere. Daniel Radcliffe could be a great young Wolverine. Nah, I don't want to see that. Quite frankly, I'm done with Daniel Radcliffe. I've seen him in movies, but Woman in Black, I think, was the best non-Harry Potter role he did. After that, the stuff I've seen him in, I just can't not see Harry Potter on him. And acting-wise, he's just... Aside from Harry Potter, I don't think he's as good as an actor, outside of that. Like I said, except for The Woman in Black. He needs to make movies that kind of, like, work to his advantage, but he's been working with a lot of movies that I feel like would be better if other actors played the role rather than him. Like, there was another movie he had where he had 2 guns strapped to his hands, and I think another actor could have done better than he did. Jake says, I notice a lot of animated movies have that comic book style these days. Yeah, it's because the Spider-Verse movies really made it take off. So that's why you're seeing it in so many things now, and you're even seeing it in stuff like the Turtles Mutant Mayhem film. And even Puss in Boots 2 adopted some of it as well. Ethan's Drawing says, I've been watching a lot of clips and previews for Inside Out 2 recently. I feel like Inside Out 2 is the only Disney project that I'm really anticipating. Well, I'm going to try to do a video on that, so I'm going to actually put that poll out there for you guys right now. I was actually going to mention that. Here, I'm going to put this poll out. Let's put a poll. Do you want me to make... Let's just make that simple. Do you want a Inside Out 1 versus Inside Out 2 versus video? Yes. No. And I'll do a third option. Do something else. Alright, I'm going to start that poll, and you guys let me know what you want to see me do. The Time Shadow. I'm slightly worried about the third Venom film, only because of this whole 10-year-old Peter Parker thing. But, hot take, I actually really like the first 2 Venom films. Yeah, Venom 2... Venom 1, I could see why someone would like that, even though I didn't. Venom 2 was just noise. And there's a weird thing where it feels like you can't even really understand what the Venom voice is saying. It's like it's less clear when they're trying to make him sound comedic. You just can't even hear what he's saying. Classic Brickman says, Eric, are you ever going to do Puss in Boots versus Puss in Boots 2? Yes, I am. I'm writing the script. The scripts take take a while, but basically while I was doing that, I'm also doing the King Kong vs. Godzilla versus King Kong X Godzilla video. I'm also prepping another versus video, which I can't talk about yet. And I'm also prepping... I'm editing my Kong vs. Godzilla versus video. And yes, I'm also working on Puss in Boots 1 versus Puss in Boots 2, so it is happening. Gregory Bronstein, he commissioned it on my Patreon. He paid for it to happen. So it is happening, definitely. But it's just balancing it with everything else I'm doing. Yeah. So ultimately, I am doing it, definitely. I've already said I'm doing it. It is going to happen. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in about a minute, so cast your votes. The G Gamer says, my family is going to watch Inside Out next week. That's cool. I'm interested to see how well it would do. The Gia Gamer says, wait, since 2 people commissioned 2-way versus videos, does that mean those 2 slots are closed? They actually were very close to being closed, but because they managed to do them at separate times, they're both open. So don't worry, if you want to fill another one, you can request it, and I'll put it in line. But Adam Grunther said he's going to do one very soon, so if he does one and someone else does one, it will be closed again. So yeah, you'll definitely want to if there's one that you want me to do, you better get in there quick, because once they're taken, you can't get them back unless someone drops out. So yeah, make sure that you get in there while you can, because Adam Grunther's going to do it, and if someone else gets in there, it's done. Okay, I'm going to end the poll right now. Don't worry, the G-Gamer. Always check back, and if you see a slot, the slots are open, that's a good sign. That means you can then go and do another one. Commission one. Okay, do you want to Inside Out 1 versus Inside Out 2 versus video? Let's end the poll. And let's look at the results. Ooh, 80% say yes, 15% say do something else, and 3% said no. Okay, cool. So looks like the Inside Out 2 versus video is going to happen. Hopefully in the next few days I'll finish the Godzilla versus Kong versus Godzilla X Kong video, and then I'm going to try to finish writing the script for Puss in Boots 1 versus Puss in Boots 2, and then we can go to Inside Out 1 versus Inside Out 2. Hey Eric, are you going to see Inside Out 2 on opening day? I'm going to try. The Dark Lord says, have you seen South Park: The End of Obesity? I enjoyed it. I haven't seen it yet. Me and my brother are going to both try to find time and see it. Midnight Dubstep says, hey, are you a fan of the Halo games? If so, what are your opinions on them? I can't say I am because I never played it. I never had an Xbox growing up. I didn't even have an Xbox 360. I've never owned an Xbox. I wasn't allowed a console when I was younger because we only had one TV in the living room, and our parents didn't want us to get distracted because we were getting distracted enough with TV. So yeah, they didn't want us to have games, which I did not like when I was younger, but when you're older, you look back and you're like, yeah, that was a good call. But it doesn't mean that I gave up. I asked my uncle for a DS. That's how I got my first ever proper console. And I was like, well, it's a portable system. They can't disconnect that. They can't take that away. I can play in the living room, out of the living room, while not occupying the TV. So yeah, the DS is ultimately my first console that allowed me to do that. But there is an asterisk to that. I did have a previous console, but not for long. And that's what I'll talk about in my game show when I talk about, you know, what my first console was. Because it's not actually the DS Lite. It technically is, but it also technically isn't. And I'll talk about that. What that is in my game show on YouTube and Patreon. Saeed says, I'm going to see Inside Out 2 hopefully on Eid. So yeah, next live stream I would have already seen it and talk about it. Eid is on Sunday. I am saying that right? Because I've talked to people where they describe, like, this is how you say these things versus how we say it. I think I did say that right. Cool. That'll be a celebratory day to go see a Disney movie. I feel like, when was the last time that happened? Jess says, Eric, here's the best directors. The Russo brothers, Christopher Nolan, Sam Raimi, Matt Reeves, and Quentin Tarantino. I'll take the Russo brothers out of that, because they were good in the MCU, but if you watch their individual non-MCU movies that they made afterwards, not so good. Jake says, while Inside Out is a good movie, the concept kind of creeps me out. Basically, we have no privacy and little people control us like robots. We don't get a whole lot of free will. Well, I looked at it as those things are kind of like, they're not controlling you as much as they are the emotions that are inside of you. How often have you had an emotion, like a negative emotion, and you're like, that is usually not me? Elite says, Eric, I have to go. Have a nice day. You too, buddy. Have a nice day as well. Thanks for joining the stream, and thanks for being a YouTube member. Like I said, your badge will keep, the longer you're a member, your badge will keep changing and evolving. Where was I? Yeah, I don't see it as them controlling you. It's kind of like how your emotions control you, like how you're trying to keep your anger in, but your anger just kind of like takes over. That's how I see it. Those things that are inside her are basically like the embodiment of things, of her mindsets, basically, of emotions. That's what it is. So those things are very much a part of her. They're not very much things that are controlling her. They are more things that are her. Those are things that she was born with, that are influenced based on her emotions. That's how I see it. I hope I explained that well. Jess says, Eric, here's the worst directors. Michael Bay, M. Night Shyamalan, Gareth Edwards, Paul Feig, and Joss Whedon. I don't know if they're all the worst directors, because M. Night Shyamalan has made some good movies. Michael Bay has made a couple good ones. Joss Whedon, yeah, I thought it was okay. Decent, sorry, not okay. Decent, the first Avengers, but I didn't love it like everyone else did. Paul Feig, yeah, he's just a from what I've seen, bad director. Gareth Edwards, the creator was decent, but yeah, Godzilla really turned me off to him. It really did. Essentially, he was saying the reason why he didn't have multiple Godzilla fights, he kept cutting away from them. His reason was essentially, I didn't know how to top. When you make an action scene, then you have to top it with the next one, top it with the next one. And essentially, he didn't know how to do that. So he said, I'll just do one action scene so I don't have to top it. That is quite dirty to me, that is. It's like, okay then, so that's why you kept cutting away, because you were not skilled enough or talented enough to basically make better action sequences where you top yourself. I mean, that's part of the whole gig of a director. You're supposed to do that. So the fact you didn't and you couldn't, it just felt like that. It just shows what a phony that movie really was. Directed from someone who just didn't know how to do it. CTG says, I will still be here until the stream ends since I have nothing else to do right now. Well, that's okay, buddy. Sam and Thomas fan says, have you seen The Croods 2 and is it better than 1? I've not seen The Croods 1. I remember seeing adverts of it, but I've never seen it. Classic Brickman says, best Cartoon Network show? Ed, Ed and Eddie. I loved that show growing up, but I still watch it to this day. The Dark Lord says, honestly, while I have seen The Last Airbender, I have seen a show created by Aaron Eharz called The Dragon Prince. While has elements of Airbender in it, it's its own thing. Okay, cool. Kit Sketch says, if you're unable to get your hands to watch original, I'd say that if you are comparing Godzilla -1 versus the original Godzilla movie, the editing in the OG movie may be a bit clunky far as I know or heard. We'll have to watch it to know for sure, but you definitely judge an older movie on its time period as well, but then you also judge it based on how it is perceived now, if it's aged well, that in other words. Brandon Tran says, do you think Indiana Jones and the Great Circle will be as good as other adventure games like Uncharted or Tomb Raider? I don't think so. It's from Microsoft, and I feel like they just don't have a clue. Jacinda says, do you think Sherlock would be able to deduce Batman's secret identity? I don't know. It would be interesting, wouldn't it? Also, about the Indiana Jones game, from what I saw, I was not too into it personally. Spirit Hero says, I've got the Batman Arkham Knight game for my Xbox, but right now I'm working on my Guardians of the Galaxy game. I was playing Guardians of the Galaxy on my Steam Deck, but it came to a point where the game just started to drop the frame rates down to like 1 or 0, and my Steam Deck would pretty much be frozen, where it couldn't really do much. So I have to hard reset the device. I've got to a stage now where the game keeps doing that. So it's like I can't progress further. I think that's just the PC version sucking, essentially. Jake has given a $14 super chat. Jake, really, thank you very much for these super chats. They always really do help. Jake says, it has to be said, what Pixar said recently, Pete, I think, has me considered for their future. You mean concerned for their future. They said they don't want personal stories anymore. They want to appeal to the widest audience. What does that mean, though? Do they mean they don't want, like, the personal story of a diverse person? They want to appeal to a wider audience, like the widest audience, which means everyone, like they used to? Is that what they're talking about? Or are they just trying to say, let's just use IPs again? Because, essentially, I said in my last live stream, they are trying to say they're trying to reboot, some Pixar franchises, the main ones being Finding Nemo and Incredibles. Except those movies were made with passion. John Lasseter, I think, was behind Finding Nemo, who they tried to fire. He's out now, and no one at Pixar, I think, has the level of care that he did. So, yeah, they can try, but they're not going to replicate it. Because the people they got now just don't give a damn. CTG says, I've also heard that these rumors of Godzilla -1 is going to appear in the Monsterverse. And do you think he would try to fight the Monsterverse Godzilla? If he does, I think he would win. Have you seen the movie where his atomic breath is basically an atomic bomb? Yeah, I think he would just destroy Godzilla. Brandon Tran says, the story for The Great Circle, Indiana Jones, looks better than Dial of Destiny. Cool. I kind of wish the game wasn't exclusive to only PC and Xbox. Well, the good thing about it being exclusive to Xbox and also PC is you get to play it on a Steam Deck or any portable device. And I've been recently playing through Jedi Fallen Order, like in my spare time here and there. And that game, I remember finding it frustrating on the PlayStation 4 because you have to stay in one place and like navigate around, and you feel like you're just sitting on your butt for so much time, backtracking and trying to find where to go. On the Steam Deck, it's so much more fun because you can pause the game, put it on sleep mode, put it away, get back to it later. It is just so much more fun to play a game like that has a lot of backtracking and stuff on a portable device than it is on a computer screen. And even if you wanted to play it on a computer screen, you still could, because you can connect it via HDMI using the Steam Deck's dock. So yeah, I'd say it's great. Jess says, Eric, one day make a 3-way apes versus video. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe one day, but right now I've got other videos that I prefer to work on personally. Is Big Bash says, is Godzilla -1 canon to the Monsterverse? No. Godzilla -1 is its own movie. It's the Toho Godzilla movies in Japan. It's got nothing to do with the Hollywood Godzilla movies. And that's good, because in Godzilla -1, Godzilla is the bad guy. In the Monsterverse, he's a good guy. Jake, thank you again for your donation. I really appreciate it. Noah, I've seen you criticize Rogue One for underusing Vader, but I think it was the right call. Vader is too OP, and the squadron would have nothing to put against him. It's hard to use him without Jedis. No, you can still use him in a battle like that. Have him completely wipe out the good guys' battalion. Maybe he could have killed a couple of the main good guys. You know, there's more creative ways to use him, but leave it to that director to decide not to use him, like he didn't use Godzilla. Zelda fan says, have you seen or heard of the anime movie Your Name? I have not. Matthew says, would you do a 3-way verse video between all of the Unbreakable trilogy? Originally I was going to do that, but then I didn't because Universal were getting very, very strict and were dishing out a lot of copyright claims, and I thought it wasn't worth the work because they could just put a copyright claim on my video, putting to waste all the hours of work that I would put into it. So I didn't do it. But it's pretty obvious which movies are better. It's like Glass is the worst movie, and the only two movies that are worth comparing is Unbreakable and Split. But Glass immediately is the third movie on that list. I liked the movie the first time I saw it, but the second time, there was no rewatch value to it. Jess says, did Godzilla x Kong give you God of War vibes? Yes, it did. It gave me God of War vibes with Kong and little Diddy Kong. It gave me God of War vibes in the sense that it was like God of War and Atreus, you know, Kratos and his son. It's especially where Godzilla put the axe on his back. It's like, I think they knew that when they were doing it. The Dark Lord says, I hope the -1 Godzilla stays its own thing. It makes room for people who want dark stories and people who want fun monster fights. Yeah, I also want them to make a sequel to it, because the director said that he has an idea for a sequel, which is interesting, because I think normally that these Toho Godzilla movies, they don't usually do sequels. They just say, alright, the previous movie didn't happen, let's do another reboot. Previous movie didn't happen, another reboot. But a sequel would be really cool if they could do it. And I think they should let him come and do a sequel. It'd be really cool to see. Oh wow, I just realised. In 42 minutes, I'm going to be 29. In my time zone. Studio Pro says, hey Eric, what are your thoughts on A Quiet Place Day 1 trailer? It looked really good. The first trailer didn't show much, I wasn't too sure. Second trailer looks really cool. There's so many of those monsters, it looks really cool. Jacinda says, are the Godzilla and King Kong movies building up to something? They keep making more of them. No, they're not building up to anything. You're just going to get Godzilla and Kong kind of like just collaborating. The first movie felt like it was a Like, you know, that the previous movies were building up to it, and then it happened, but now it's like they're just making it just to make it. Zayden says, I honestly think -1 is perfect without a sequel. So do I. But if the director who made the movie says he has an idea for another story, then I want to see it. Saeed says, what's the feeling of going to midnight of your birthday? I don't know. I don't think I've done it very often. Big Bash says, so if you're turning 29, does that mean you were born in 96? No, it was 95. Jake says, I'll give Titanic this. It's impressive how they found a way to have a female nipples in a PG-13. Yeah, I was surprised by that when I was a kid. Because you're used to watching movies that are, here in the UK it was 12, which is not as open as PG-13. PG-13 has so much more liberties, whereas, you know, the 12 rating here, our equivalent PG-13, is more strict when it comes to nudity and violence, and even horror movies. You have a lot of PG-13 horror movies in America and stuff. In the UK, you don't have any horror movies that are PG-13. They're all rated R. Except for 2, just in history, just 2. And the second one they had to cut down, but it was, you know. Anyway, I was surprised when I saw that. I was for sure certain they were going to cut away, but then they showed it, and I was like, this is a 12 movie, how? They don't allow that in 12 movies, so it seems like either an oversight or something that they just says, yeah, alright, we'll allow it, which makes no sense to me. CTG, I didn't know that. The director of -1 said he would most likely make it a trilogy with an even worse monster that could be King Ghidorah or Destroyer. Wow. A modern-day King Ghidorah. I'd be really curious about that. But how would the humans... factor into that? Because that was what was so great about Godzilla -1, is the human characters, you cared about them so much that you didn't even care that Godzilla was not on screen for a while. Matthew Club says, Eric, I will donate you $50 if you do the Underworld vs. Resident Evil video sooner rather than later. Buddy, $50 is not going to cut it. These versus videos take me a long time to make. To watch the movie, to analyze the movie, to write my notes for both movies, then to compare the two movies. The editing for the two videos, $50 is not going to cut it. Go to my Patreon if you want to know what my commission rates are. That's what... If you do that, then yes, I could do that video much sooner. Much sooner. Because quite frankly, that video is so far down on the list, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon whatsoever. So yeah, if you want it to be brought up closer, then yeah, you have to go to Patreon and look at my commissions there. So yeah, if you want it to happen, it can, but you have to do the commission, like what Gregory has done, and what Adam Grunther said that he is going to do. Jake says, I miss when the PG rating actually meant parental guidance. Yeah, I miss that too. But essentially, that's what our PG-13 rating is now. Steven Spielberg, if you go back to a really old interview, which came out, was it in like the late 80s or early 90s? He said that when they asked him about what do you think is going to happen with the PG rating down the line, he goes that the PG-13 rating will most likely take the place of the PG rating, and it has. So yeah, he was right about that. The only thing is, with PG ratings, they would have dark movies, but it felt like it was always at a certain level. PG-13, you can get your generic MCU movies that are not even dark at all, yet somehow they get PG-13, and then you can get your Dark Knights, where you see a burnt half face, and then you get Joker slamming someone's head into a pencil, and then you get, you know, the Batmans as well, which could also get really dark, or your Fox X-Men movies, which could also get really dark. You know, so yeah, the PG-13 definitely it's taken over the PG rating, but it can definitely go further than the PG rating too. Matthew Cub says, what if I make $100 to $120? What do you mean? You got to be more specific. You mean, is that all you make? Or do you mean, what if you paid that? You got to be more specific with me, Matthew. Otherwise, I don't know how to answer your question. PG ratings are now for kids movies. Yeah, they are, Jess. They really are. Spirit Hero says, Jaws, a PG movie, had more balls than the PG-13 MCU movies nowadays. Yeah, I always say this. The MCU movies nowadays are just PG movies that have 1 or 2 uses of bad language, and that bumps it up to PG-13. There is nothing PG-13 about them. If you want to see a PG-13 movie, look at what The Batman did recently. That pushed the PG-13 rating to the point that in places you couldn't even tell if it was rated R. In fact, here in the UK, it was rated R. It just crossed that line. Zidon says, I don't know about Destroyer, considering he was created by the Oxygen Destroyer, and it takes him more than decades for it to fully evolved. So yeah, I would say King Ghidorah, but could you imagine if King Ghidorah, he saved that for the final movie in the trilogy? Matthew Club says, no, what if I paid you $100 to $120 to make the video? No, I said you gotta go to Patreon. I planned out my rates on Patreon, and I put them there. So if you want to know what my rates are, I've left it on Patreon. That's my rates. In terms of the effort and the work that it takes to get those videos made, that's what you have to pay, what's on my Patreon. Because keep in mind, I've got to work on the other videos as I'm working on that too. So, you know, it's a lot of work. Because normally I would not be working on that video, and I'd just be working on the videos that I'm already planning on making. But when you got to add that to the already growing list, it's a lot of work to do, so it has to be what I put on Patreon, buddy. It really has to be. So if it takes you time to save up for that, that's okay. You don't have to rush to do that. But if you do that, then I will do a versus video of the movie you wanted. Parker... Oh, hi, Parker. Parker says, are you optimistic for Welcome to Derry series? Yeah, I'm interested to see what they do. CTG says, no, that's a response to Zidon. Matthew says, hey Eric, I like you reading my comment, but would it be okay if you didn't say my last name? Just call me Matthew. Yeah, no problem. Was I calling you Matthew Club the whole time? I do that with a lot of viewers. Like sometimes I say the whole name. I'll like Parker, I always say Parker CS2, or sometimes just Parker. But that's fine, I'll call you Matthew. Noah, are there any movie which always hit you in the heart or make you cry? I don't cry, but Gwen's death and Barry's goodbye to his mom always hit me emotionally. Well, not if they hit me the first time, they don't normally hit me the second time. What movie did hit me, does always hit me? I'm trying to think. Well, recently, I thought the second to last episode of Young Sheldon was very emotional. They got the drama down there perfectly. So that got me emotional. It felt so real. Like, imagine if you lost a father like that. Maybe Logan. You know, the death scene there was really emotional and sad. Spirit Hero says, if you're looking for a truly horrifying movie, Eric, you should watch Hereditary. It makes the It movies look like tame PG-13s. I've seen Hereditary, I wasn't a fan, but it did have some good scares in there. But it felt like it was making up its rules as it went along. Matthew says, hey Eric, have you seen The Walking Dead show and The Last of Us? So, if so, which is better? The Walking Dead... I watched season 1 because a friend recommended it, and I liked the first couple of episodes, but then I just kind of got bored of it. So I wasn't really a fan. I stopped watching after that. And what was the other show you were mentioning? Last of Us. I watched a few episodes of that and then I couldn't go on any further either. So, yeah, I'm not really a fan of either, to be perfectly honest with you. So which one was the least worst? I haven't even finished... Well, I did watch the whole of the first season of Walking Dead, and I couldn't watch the whole first season of The Last of Us, so I'll say The Walking Dead Season 1 was better. But I thought The Walking Dead Season 1 video game from Telltales, I thought that was better than both of them. Gregory says, oh, hi Gregory, just letting you know, the Puss in Boots script is coming together nicely. I'm still writing it, so once I've written it, I can then get to editing it. The writing usually takes the longest. Then you got another Versus video coming up after that because you donated another, so You got 2 versus videos that you can request, but we'll do that first one first, then we'll get to the next one. Gregory asks, though, did you watch Dune 2? I still haven't. I'm still waiting for a friend to get a copy of it so I can watch it in 4K. I don't even know if it's out in 4K yet. I should check that. And we got another $5 donation from Adam Grunther. Thank you very much, buddy. Aside from the Joker, who is your favorite Batman movie villain? I'd say Two-Face. I've always liked Two-Face as a villain. And the fact that they're friends as well, in certain versions of the stories and stuff, it's really cool. I really do like Two-Face as a villain. And if you've read The Long Halloween, when he shows up, that was really cool there. That got very dark very fast, even though the whole thing was dark. Adam, I've not seen Furiosa, so I can't really say. That to me looked like a streaming movie, Furiosa. It's a spin-off movie. It looks just like the last one, the setting, the environment, the effects and everything. So I was like, for today's standards, that's something I can watch on streaming. I considered watching it in theaters, but then I just didn't really feel like it. So I just ended up watching what was it? I'm just going to end up watching... so I watched it at home on streaming, basically. Gregory says, I don't think I'm going to pay for a second Versus video. Anyway, what do you think of the first Puss in Boots on rewatch? You already did pay for the second one, which you mentioned. Because then I refunded it to you the first time, and then the second time it happened again. So, let's see. What did I think of the first one? I don't want to say too much. Because everyone else here is going to have to see it. So if you want to comment and send me a message on Patreon, I'll respond back to you. But I'll say I really did like the villain in that one. We talk about how great the villain is in Puss in Boots 2. I did like the villain in Puss in Boots 1. Still got me to laugh. The movie itself, it was definitely more of what you expected from a Shrek spin-off movie. That's how I'll put it right now. Jake says it's 6:31 over here. I think one of you asked what time is it in my time zone. It might have been Big Bash. It's 11:32 here, so in 28 minutes, it's my birthday and I'm 29. Excuse me, I just had a bit of a leaky nose right there. LG Jordan says, are there any movies that you enjoy but haven't reviewed? That's a very good question. Yeah, there's a lot of movies. There's Die Hard, there's Rambo, there's Terminator. I know I've not reviewed it. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. In terms of newer movies, I can't really think of it. But the thing is, whenever I like a movie, if I don't make a video on it, I still bring it up in my top 5 or top 10 best movies videos, depending if I want to do 5 or 10, depends how big my list is. That's usually what I do. So even if I don't review it, I'll bring it up usually. Yep, a lot of you know who I'm talking about when I say the villain of the first Puss in Boots. Yeah, he is hilarious, especially when he's like, I was always there. Then when you see what goes on, even when he disguises himself as one of the cats, I remember that was hilarious, and the evil look on his face as he's trying to look so serious, but he looks so ridiculous dressed as that cat. That was funny, that was. Whoever would have thought Humpty Dumpty would be a villain as well? He always seemed like he would be like a victim. Big Bash's Eric, what time were you born at? It's funny, as I was telling you guys this time, I was thinking to myself, what time was I born at? I don't think I ever asked. Or if I did, I can't remember. I'll have to ask my parents. Michael Myers and Dewey Riley were both emasculated in their respective franchises. I don't know how Michael Myers was, but I know Dewey, they did him dirty. I've already said, I didn't like what they did with him. They killed him off like he was a nobody. That was insulting. No one says, Eric, do you prefer a good movie or a good comic book movie? For example, I think The Dark Knight is a better movie, but I think The Batman better adapts Batman's feelings and comic book atmosphere. Honestly, I prefer a good movie, if you can make a good movie out of it, because they may still made a case. I think they still presented a very good case for why he was the way he was in the Nolan movies. So I would say a good movie would be better than a better adaptation, because how many adaptations are out there that are not like the comic book, but they still do well? I mean, Joker, in many ways, it takes the rules of Joker, but it's not exactly a Joker. It's not like exactly accurate to what Joker is in the comics. So I would say a good movie I would prefer. Let's see, where's the other? Gregory said something which I wanted to answer. Gregory says, even if I don't pay for a new Versus video, can I use the previous money from months ago to request a new one? Because if I can, then I'll probably go for Coco vs. Encanto. Yes, you can, because like I said, you did pay for a second one, and I always intended to basically come back to you after I finish the first one and say, what do you want for your second one? So yeah, of course you can. And it will, and yeah, I can do that one. You did request that one the last time, so yeah, I will do that afterwards. Let's get the Puss in Boots one finished first, and then we can move on to that. And then I've also got Adam Grunther, who also wants to do a request one, and I got a couple other people saying that they want to do requests for Versus videos, so getting quite busy here. So yeah, anytime you want to jump in, you guys can, and I'll I'll commission a video for you. The G Gamer goes, damn, that was my #1 Versus video when I do one. Well, now you can think of another one. Unless Gregory changes his mind later, in which case you then can have that one. Matthew says, Eric, what is the most controversial movie you've ever seen? I don't really know if I've seen a controversial one. Controversial movie. Well, there's one movie that Hollywood doesn't like to talk about, and it's a movie called The Message. If you know, what's the epic movie that, The Ten Commandments, that was it. The Ten Commandments, everyone talks about how great an epic movie that is and stuff, but there was another big movie called The Message, which is supposed to be, you know, The Ten Commandments is like a Christian epic, but The Message is a movie that is supposed to be like a Muslim epic, and you don't get movies like that in Hollywood. But there was a Hollywood producer who actually tried to fund it because he was a Muslim himself. It was it Mustafa Akkad, who's basically a producer of the Halloween movies? He produced something based on his faith, and it was a movie that has like the Prophet Muhammad. It has him in it, but he can't be in it because I think it's sacrilegious to actually show him. So it's basically a story that is actually not propaganda like Hollywood movies will do nowadays. It was actually made from someone who actually had a love for telling the story about his religion. And I really respect that. It's something that you do not get in Hollywood nowadays, because now it would all be twisted. It would all be done, you know, like disingenuously. And it seemed more earnest. Like when you hear people in Hollywood movies, they always try to put a bad slant anytime they talk about Muslims, but this one actually did a more honest one, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how tragic their history really was. So if you're into your history like I am, definitely watch a movie called The Message. It was made in the 70s, but it was like a big epic. It's a one-of-a-kind movie that I don't think will ever get made again. And yeah, that is a great movie. It was a great movie in of itself, but it's also a great lesson as well. So they would consider that controversial, but that's only because they don't like Muslims or something. I mean, you can see that in Israel and the whole Palestine thing. You can totally see that. So if you know how the media frames it and everything, so watch that. That's a very it's a movie that I think is what they would consider controversial, but there's nothing controversial about it. It's being very honest. It's not turning the story into propaganda, which is what they would try to do now. So that is a movie which I would say is controversial, but has no reason to be controversial, and is a movie that I would recommend that you watch. It's a great movie in of itself, and they had a big budget to do it, and they also lost funding to it as well, and it was a movie they had to struggle to make. but they did it in the end. And it was very smart the way they did it. Big Bash said it's forbidden to show Muhammad in any case. Yeah, like I said, I think it's sacrilegious or something. It's basically something that they don't want you to do. So it very respectfully did it in that. Worked around it in that case. Although I've heard in real life, he actually was in these situations, but I think they had to change it, put his uncle in there, and have his uncle speak for the Prophet. And they didn't have Muhammad actually there. So they had to do a workaround, but in the actual stories in real life, he actually was there. They just couldn't show him in the movie. Let's see. Jake says, the South Park crew learned that, but they still tried to get him on screen anyways. They got balls, I admit. There's balls, but then there's a whole thing of respect. It's like, you gotta show respect as well. So it's like, what was South Park gonna do by showing him? And it's not like they're singling South Park out. They're singling out everyone, saying you can't do it. Even in their own movie, it wasn't allowed. So I think by that, you should show respect towards them in that way. I mean, God knows, the world doesn't show them any respect. So in that way, they should show them respect. I think the South Park guys had to censor it afterwards. And they never, from what I can tell, as far as I'm concerned, they never did show it. So that's good on them, the fact that they did take it out. And they didn't try to, sneak it in afterwards. Jacinda says, my controversial one was the Woman King. The Woman King was controversial? Actually, I think I remember why it was. Did they do something where they changed history? And it was not something that was good, what they changed. That the movie is trying to be, look at this, we're putting black women in the movie. We're being very this, we're being very that, we're being very political, we're being very forward, we're being this and that. But then they did something which kind of went against all of that, I think is what happened. They had to bleep all that out, did they, Jake? Well, I just think maybe some stuff, there has to be a respect shown. And if they just don't allow anyone to show drawings or pictures of him, then I think they shouldn't do it. Parker, what is your question? What were problems with Evil Dead Rise, and what did you like about the movie? I love the production. It was supposed to be a HBO Max movie, but they ended up releasing it in theaters. I was very impressed with... I was like, man, this was supposed to be a HBO Max streaming movie. It doesn't look like it. It looks like a proper theatrical movie. But I wasn't satisfied with the way everything was concluded. It just felt... It felt a little bit messy, or felt like lackluster. It's like, oh, is that it? Is that the ending? Oh, well, okay then. That's what I thought, personally. The Movie King 3000. Hey, Eric, what is your opinion on Avengers 5 potentially having over 60 characters in it? Me, personally, I don't like it, because you can't develop 60 characters even with a longer runtime. I wonder if they're just going to have them in a big action scene and kill a bunch of them off early on, because you're right, you can't have 60 characters. But here's the thing. Unlike Infinity War and Endgame, where people were like, there's about 30 superheroes or something, how can you fit them in a movie? Those were all heroes that we all liked. But how many of these newer heroes from phases 4 and 5 do we actually like? I don't think we like any of them, so it's like, technically, if they wanted to, they could kill a bunch of them off. And I think it would be alright. If anything, I think it would clean up their rather scattered and messy MCU, to be perfectly honest with you. So... I don't know, I think it can be done because we don't care about these characters. CTG says, hey Eric, I'm going to be thinking about also becoming a Patreon member, but I have no clue if I should. Wow, you want to be a YouTube member and a Patreon member? That is one heck of a boatload of support there, CTG. I really appreciate that. Well, there's 2 perks you can get on Patreon that you cannot get here at YouTube membership. One is my Let's Watch show, because YouTube is very messy when it comes to copyright claims, so that show just cannot be done on YouTube. It has to be done on Patreon. So the Let's Watch show is reason enough to go on over to my Patreon. I'm going to continue doing a Let's Watch show on there very soon. I'm going to do one with Invincible Season 2, the second half, so you can watch that. I've also got the Grinch movies there, where I did a Let's Watch of them. The old, was it 60s animated one? And also the Jim Carrey movie, so you got that to watch. So I'd recommend that for Let's Watch there. And also, you'll get my game show there too. You can see my Patreon perks right here on the screen here. you get Let's Watch for movies and shows that I do. But what will also happen is the second perk I've got that you can't get on YouTube memberships is commissioning videos. So if there's a quick movie review you want me to do, or if there is a two-way versus video or a three-way versus video you want me to do, head on over to our Patreon and you can commission it, and you can make it be whatever you want, so long as it falls under the stuff that I've mentioned, where I'm like, no sexual movies, no pornographic movies, or anything like that, you know what I mean? So long as it fits the categories that I've put out, you can do it. So that's what you can do on Patreon. That's different from YouTube memberships. Parker says, when is your next video? In a few days. I'm trying to finish off my Godzilla X Kong versus Godzilla versus Kong video. Ephraim says, day 67 of asking for Avengers 3 versus Zack Snyder cut Justice League, please. That is something that's on my list. Big Bash, I know, I'm sorry, but it's a big video and I've got these other videos to work on. If I have to jump onto Spider-Man right now, I'm going to literally go insane. So I need to lighten my current workload, then I can go to that. But I'm sorry, I know it's taken way longer. It will come out, but I need to lighten my current workload because I can't... It's a big video, I can't do all of it. CTG says, well, I will most likely do it if my birthday money will be enough tomorrow, but we will see. Yeah, take your time. You don't have to rush. So long as you feel comfortable donating, that's what it is. But yeah, I'm sorry, Big Bash. I really am. But it's a big video. It really is a big video. So, and you saw how long it took me to do 2 versus videos of 2 TV shows with Avatar, the animated show, and Avatar, the live action show. Doing 2 versus videos with 2 video games, that is not easy. I've only done it once before, and this is the second time, and there's a reason for that. They take a long time. Matthew says, wow, Eric, you have my full respect if you're not the kind that is into sexual or nudity, very Sigma-like. Well, you gotta... I don't like when it's done pointlessly, so if anyone wants me to do it, like I've said, I've actually put a joke in my Patreon where I'm like, so no 50 Shades of Grey, and there's another couple jokes I put in there too. But, yeah. That's basically what it is. I don't like to do those kinds of stuff. I just don't watch that kind of stuff in general, so I wouldn't even get paid. You can't even pay me to basically do versus videos of those. Big Bash says, remember when Cleopatra was made black when she isn't? Yeah, I remember that, and I also remember when Gal Gadot wanted to play Cleopatra as well, even though we know what she thinks of Muslims, basically. So it's like, or you're people of that ethnicity, so it's like you're trying to take a role away from them now as well, an actor that could actually play it. Yeah, it was just a hypocrisy on her side. But yeah, Gal Gadot, I've lost all respect for her. Completely gone. Yeah, Ephraim, it won't be happening soon, but it is on my list of things to do. Edwin says, hey Eric, what are your ratings of Avatar The Last Airbender seasons? 3, 2, 1. That's the rating. Jake says, sex and nudity doesn't really bother me much, to be fair, as long as it's not pointlessly gross. That's what I mean, if it's not pointlessly gross. But if you've seen, like, the movie X, that went way overboard. I was skipping it, like, 30 seconds, and it was still happening. And I was like, what is going on here? That movie was known, where people are saying that the nudity in that should have been an NC-17. Somehow it got an R. What was the other one? Noah says, how long does it take for you to mix the sound for your videos? Depends how long the video is, but it'll usually take me a good long day. At most. Because you got to mix in the sound with your music, you got to mix in the sound with your voice, and then you've also got to make sure that the clips you have are the right sound. Because I hate watching videos on YouTube where someone is talking and their volume is like this, but then they cut to a clip and the volume is like this. It just peaks so loud, you have to quickly drop the volume on your speakers. I hate that. So this, the way I do it, I try to make sure that the volume is all consistent, so you don't have to adjust your speakers, and that takes time too. Because the sound of my voice when I'm recording in my microphone, which is right here, is not on the same level as, say, the scene from a movie, or the scene or for the voice that I did of a different recording. So you got to balance it all. It takes time. Jess says Madam Web is a rip-off to Final Destination. It was in many ways. G Gamer, have you answered this? Making sure I'm not repeating. But have you played Alien Isolation? No, I've not answered this, but I think you did comment it recently. I was gonna answer it, but I didn't get around to it because, like I said, I've been busy. I've not played it, but I've seen it when it was announced, when it was released. I watched people play it, and it's fun to watch people play it. But it's not. I don't think that movie would be fun for me to play personally. Because I'd probably just stay in one spot the whole time, too many times, and then I'd find it frustrating. So it's fun to watch someone else play that kind of game. That's where the fun, I think, would come. But I don't think it's fun for me to play the game, that kind of game. Saeed says, I'm glad she's not Wonder Woman anymore. Me too. Hopefully she tanks as an actress. I don't think she should be rewarded for what she's basically supporting, and most likely what she has done. If she's supporting that stuff that's going on, then most likely she has done it. So we don't know what kind of a violent, disgusting past she's had. She's most likely done some dark things if she's giving it the thumbs up, because she worked in the IDF, didn't she? Jake says, ironically, your average 12-year-old is told to write a raunchy comedy, would end up getting an NC-17. Yeah, the rating is so silly in the US. It's more just to get butts in the seats than it is to actually monitor what people of various age groups see. Big Bash says, Eric, have any creators ever asked you to be in a collaboration with them? And if they did, who were they? No, I don't think any creators really did. But to be fair, oh yeah, Dave Cullen. He did a long time ago when I used to review technology. He asked for me to collaborate with him and to do a video on... He asked me to do a video on X-Men once. He asked me to do phone reviews for his channel, which I did. So yeah, Dave Cullen. He was someone that I watched because he did a very good job of showing like some editing tutorials, and then he ended up becoming like a bigger YouTube channel. And we used to chat and talk, and yeah, he was a great. He even was like a bit of a mentor at times too. He was very good at helping me on the channel when I was younger. It was so nice. It was good. Oh. Oh. Spirit Hero says, what did you mean when you said that the movie Hereditary made its own rules? Well, do you remember the fireplace scene? Where when she was doing stuff, it ended up hurting her, but then she just threw it in the fireplace, and then that other guy, her husband, got set on fire. I was like, how? It's like you're just making this up. CTG says, I've decided I'll sign up for the free, but I'll think about upgrading to a big membership tier in a couple days. Cool. I hope you enjoy the content. I always try to give back as much content as I can when you sign up for these things. Out of curiosity, which membership tier do you think you're going to try to join? I'd be curious to know. Hey Eric, Matthew says, hey Eric, have you seen The Godfather? If so, do you like it? When I was a young kid, I heard about The Godfather so much, so I tried to stay up late at 11:30 to watch the movie, and I watched like the first 10 minutes of it, and I remember it was a lot of talking of the Godfather character, like just with a cigarette, like doing a lot of talking, and then he walks, and I was like, this movie looks old, this movie seems boring. And I remember I was not too fond of it personally, I remember. Yeah, I remember not liking it very much, which is interesting. But yeah, that kind of put me off of ever going back to it, but I will try to watch them at some point. I've still not seen the Godfather movies, so if you ever wanted to wonder what's the big kind of franchise movie I've not seen, The Godfather. Parker says, when's your next video? I think I already answered this. It should be in a few days. CTG says, I'll most likely pay for the early access tier. Okay, cool. Jake says, the Globfather. What does that mean? Is that something in the movie that I've just... Or you're just making a joke? I can't tell. I'm sorry. If you are making a joke, I've ruined it. Spirit Hero says, oh yeah, that was a bit odd now that I look back on it. Big Bash says, Eric, if you had to choose, who would you collaborate with if given the choice? Let's see. I think it would have been cool to collaborate with Chris Stuckman back when he was actually critical of movies, versus now when he's trying to be in Hollywood's good graces, so he's trying not to. Angry Joe would be a fun one to do a video on, because I feel like I could counter a lot of his points that he makes when he says certain, depending on what it is, of course, but there's certain stuff he does where I'm like, I feel like if I was in a room with him, I could always like have a conversation. So I'd say yeah. Jake, I don't think you also failed. I think I failed too. It's not just on you, it's on me as well. Zayden says, do you think Godzilla -1 and Oppenheimer is a better comparison than Barbenheimer? In a way, because I did say that Godzilla -1 felt like it could work with a double bill as for Oppenheimer, and yeah. So that would have been funny memes as well, but I think Barbie and Oppenheimer was its own funny little thing. Spirit Hero says, I have to go now, Eric. See you in a few weeks. No problem, buddy. Take care. And it's my birthday in 5 minutes. 5 minutes. The Movie King says, off topic, but I hate content creators who has to bring the culture wars into everything, especially the people who use woke as an excuse to be either grifters or racists like Synthetic Men and Nerdrotic. I don't like how people have forced it overboard too. For me, I've already done a live stream where I've talked about what I consider woke, because at the time there was something that everyone got behind when it came to the word woke. The word woke really came around when The Last Jedi came out, and it felt like they were trying to like, you know, raise the female character at the expense of the iconic male character like Luke Skywalker, and even Poe was just talked down to by a woman, even though he didn't do anything wrong, but it felt like they were putting him in his place. That's where woke came from, and now it's turned into this thing where anything is considered woke. Like, even in the Batman, they were saying some stuff was woke, and I was like, no, it isn't. Some people are trying to say Ahsoka is woke. I'm like, no, it is not. You know, there's a lot of stuff where they try to do it, and I don't agree. I still think there are woke elements in movies, don't get me wrong, but I don't like what it's turned into, how they've just applied it to everything now. At the time, you could point out when a movie was being woke, and we understood what it meant, but now they just, yeah, they've, it's ridiculous where they've taken it now. But yeah, Connor, but I agree with you, the Movie King. But Connor, CTG has given himself, changed his username, given himself a name. I'll call you Connor from now on, because all this time I've been calling you CTG. So Connor says, I just changed my YouTube name to my long username that I use for a lot of social media accounts. Okay, that's good. It means I can call you Connor now. That's good. Jake says, I unsubscribed from him. I feel bad, but Chris Stuckman needs a spine. He seems like a sweet guy, though. Yeah, what I didn't like is that it seems like he's really trying to act like to Hollywood, especially with that Madam Web video he did. It's like he's trying to act like to Hollywood, like, you know, I'm one of you, I'm trying to cover for you, I'm trying to defend you when people are talking bad of your movies. But it's like his video made no sense, because as a reviewer, he should know exactly what the whole purpose of reviews and criticisms are. Mindless bashing of the creators, I understand that's not good, but criticism of movies, there's nothing wrong with that. Imagine if Warner Brothers never got criticism for Batman and Robin, and they followed what Chris Stuckman said, which was just don't pay for it, or like, vote with your wallet, all that kind of thing. It's like, well, if they didn't talk about it, then Warner Brothers would have been like, well, Batman Forever did very well, but Batman and Robin didn't. So how about we just go back to what Batman Forever did, and we make a lot of money on that? That's what they would have done. But because people are very critical of Batman and Robin, people said what they didn't like. They didn't like the bat nipples. They didn't like the goofy tone. They didn't like the comedy. They didn't like the color scheme. They didn't like how everything was just so colorful and goofy and like all that stuff. Bat nipples, they didn't like. Bat butts, bat crotches. They made it clear what they didn't like, and it's because of that they wanted to go back to the roots. And what did they do? We ended up getting the fantastic Christopher Nolan trilogy. That only happened because of criticism. But if Chris Stuckman is now saying that criticism should not happen, well then, you wouldn't get improved movies nowadays, because Hollywood then will not know how to react. So criticism, there's a reason for it. And I feel like Stuckman, either that is something that he should know himself, and I feel like the old Stuckman would, but now this new Stuckman who's trying to appease Hollywood and act like he's with the Hollywood club, like, that he's trying to get into that club, it feels like he's now either just completely forgotten it, or he's deliberately tried to forget about it, or he's acting like he doesn't know about it just so he can sound good in their graces. That's what it seems like to me, and I don't agree with that. Look at that, 1 minute and I'm going to be 29. I'm 28 right now for a few more seconds. Let me just take this in. Still 28, and I'm not going to be 28 ever again. There we go. Now I'm 29. Ugh. And I'm getting happy birthday wishes from all of you guys. Thank you very much. Now I'm 29. I'm 1 year closer to 30. That's scary, that is. Thank you all very, very much. Do you have any birthday plans, Eric? No, not really. I'm just going to be chilling out a bit tomorrow, take some time off. I'm probably going to still do some editing, but I'm going to try to have some fun, you know, and maybe watch maybe watch a movie or something, and, you know, like, take some time off today. Yeah, Jake, oh, thank you, Jake, as well, for the happy birthday. Saeed, Rohan, Jess, the G Gamer, Edwin, all of you, thank you very much for the birthday wishes. I really appreciate it. Jacinda, thank you very much. Let's see. Jake says, is age really a concept we created as humans? If we didn't keep count, we would still see differences over time, but not every year. Yeah, it kind of is. It's really due to societal pressures. Once you reach 30, you feel like you have to have a lot of stuff done and completed, don't you? And if you don't, you feel like what are you doing with your life? It kind of gives you that vibe. So yeah, for me, my big goal was always to be successful on YouTube, and I'm still trying to do that. Because this is something I really enjoy doing, and I would like to do it like full time and everything, but it's hard to actually accomplish that. So that's my big goal, which I'm hoping I get done before 30. And that's why I've got ideas and stuff, and that's why your guys' donations help, YouTube memberships help, Patreon helps, because you know, you guys sharing these videos I make whenever I upload them, giving them thumbs up, these things all help in trying to make that become a reality, because that's my ultimate goal that I really want to achieve, because I really do love what I do. Jess says, watch Morbius on your birthday, Eric. I've seen that movie once. I don't ever need to see it again. Unless someone commissions it on Patreon, which then I probably would have to see it again. The G Gamer says, you are probably one of my favorite movie review YouTubers alongside my other favorites. Oh, thank you very much. Saeed says, yeah, I hate society pressures so much. Big Bash says, do some people in real life make fun of you because you do YouTube full time? Yeah, some people used to try. My cousin tried. I shut him down when he did, because I know that my cousin really wanted to do this kind of thing himself. He actually opened up a YouTube channel himself. It didn't work out at all. The G Gamer says, Dark Knight rewatch on your birthday. Probably not. Probably something I've not seen, or probably something I wanted to see again that I've not seen in a while. I've wanted to see Godzilla -1 again, so maybe I'll give that a watch. I want to see Mission Impossible 8 again as well, because there's one scene I went to the bathroom on when I was watching it in theatre, so I did want to watch that again. Jess says, you are the most underrated YouTuber of all time. I like you and I'm proud of you. Noah says, hot take. I've tried to rewatch Raimi's Spidey movies, but I can't. Toby is a good Peter, but not Spidey. And his acting's not good at times. I also can't stand the campy tone. It lacks self-awareness. Well, that's fair enough. I think it is self-aware enough, and I like the fact that it doesn't try to go so goofy, like what the newer Holland movies try to. Saeed says, Eric, you are 1 year closer to awesomeness. Big Bash says, you're the best YouTuber in my opinion because you are 100% you and don't change yourself to please anyone. Yep, that's what I always try to do. Rohan says, do you agree that The Boys should end after season 5? Yeah, I think so. I actually thought it should have ended with season 4 that's coming up, but we'll see what happens. Jess, did I read this? Jess says, you are the most underrated YouTuber of all time. I like you and I'm proud of you. Well, thank you very much, buddy. That really means a lot. And with that said, guys, I think I've spent a lot of time with you. I've also spent a lot of birthday time with you. You guys have been very generous with the donations, especially Jake, as always. No, I can never underestimate his. I can never predict or underestimate his kindness and his super kind gestures. Like, seriously. So thank you very, very much, all of you. It's been an absolutely wonderful time. I'm glad this is the first time I can actually spend time with you guys. Right on the dot when it just hits my birthday. So I'm glad that we could do all this, and I'll quickly answer this one question from the Movie King, because he's been posting it quite a few times, so I'll quickly answer it. I know you haven't watched X-Men 97, but did you notice that before it released, all the anti-woke channels were bashing this show, and the second the review came out and it was good, they went quiet? I didn't notice that, but I heard people calling it woke. The only reason I remember was that because they turned Rogue's butt flat, but that was only one shot. I don't know, but at the same time, I do see what people say with that, because they keep having guys take their shirts off and everything, but when it's the other way around, when, you know, guys want to see it, so the girls basically get their Chris Hemsworth shirt off scenes all the time. Look what Thor: Love and Thunder did. But when it's the other way around, all of a sudden it becomes like, well, we got to censor that stuff. It's like, for me, I don't care either way personally, but I do see when others are complaining about it, there is like a double standards there. But yeah, like I said, I don't care either way. Cover up the guy, cover up the woman. For me, it doesn't matter. I think, honestly, covering them up to me is what I prefer, because I want them to focus on the story as it is. But anyway, Big Bash says, have an amazing birthday, and may God continue to give you all the blessings in the world. Oh, thank you very much, Big Bash. Jake says, people called a Mario movie woke before it came out. Were they? That was silly. Saeed says, have an awesome birthday, Eric. Have a great day. Thank you very much. Orangutan, you're my favorite YouTuber, and I wish you a happy birthday. Thank you very, very much, all of you. Star Wars Tales of the Kingdom. You mean Tales of the Empire, Edwin? I have. I like the first 3 episodes. Was it first 3? I like the first 3. I wasn't so fond with the latter 3. I thought there were good moments in there, but they weren't all great. Movie King says, you have a good night, Eric, and happy birthday. Yeah, thank you very much. As always, I love all of you guys. I love all you guys, and I always enjoy these live streams. So thank you very, very much for watching. I really appreciate it. So yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll catch all of you very soon. Take care.